Today we are looking at this. This is not a Rolex. This is not an Oyster Perpetual, and this is not an expensive watch. Today we are looking at Addiesdive, the first Addiesdive I've ever actually reviewed. And for a watch that comes in as cheap as this does, I'm surprised it's as good as it is. Welcome back to the channel. I'm Chase, and this is All Things Random, mostly watch reviews with some random stuff sprinkled in between, mostly watch reviews though, and that's what we're talking about today. Today we're talking about a very affordable watch. Now, a lot of people who have viewed this channel for quite some time know that I am a big fan of homage watches. Now, what is an homage watch? An homage watch is a watch that takes styling cues from the original. This is not a direct fake or a direct copy. This is something like a Pagani design, a San Martin, something that kind of looks like the original watch, but has their own brand on it, whereas like a fake would have the actual brand of the watch. Like if it's a Rolex and it has the Rolex crown, the Rolex name, but it's not a Rolex, that would be a fake, not an homage. So today we're looking at an homage to a Rolex Oyster Perpetual. Now, the Oyster Perpetual was one of the watches that were the most affordable watches in the Rolex category, but that is not the case anymore. It used to be the Air King, the Oyster Perpetual, then the Submariner, then something like actually before the Submariner, it was the Explorer, then the Explorer 2, then the Submariner, and then you go up from there. That being said, the Oyster Perpetual, which was a very easy watch a few years ago to get a hold of, is harder and harder to get a hold of. So then you have things like this. If you don't feel like spending the $7,000 on an Oyster Perpetual, if you can get on the wait list and you want just something similar because you like the look of the dress watch, then I would recommend this. This thing is under $100, full stainless steel bracelet, full stainless steel end links, full stainless steel case, does not have a sapphire crystal, K1 mineral crystal, but as always, let's go ahead and hop into the details first, then my opinion at the very end. But before we do that, do me a favor, hit the subscribe button. It's free. It doesn't cost you anything. It allows me to tell the watch companies to keep sending me watches to review so that I can bring them to you guys. Anyway, let's hop into the video. Now, I was super impressed when I first laid hands on this watch. I've seen Addiedives on a lot of YouTube videos in the past, but I've never actually been able to lay my hands on it. This is in the ultra affordable category. I say that because I think affordable is anywhere from maybe $200 to $1,000. Ultra affordable would be under $200, and this thing comes in under $100. And it's amazing the things that they offer on this. So let's go ahead and get into this actual watch. Now, this thing to me is kind of an alternative to the Rolex Oyster Perpetual, the OP, because of just the simple design. Now, is it a direct copy? People can argue that this is an homage, but again, at under $100, let's talk about what's offered in this. Now, this thing comes in at about 38 millimeters in diameter, has a case thickness, even with this K1 massively domed crystal, comes in at just under 11. The lug-to-lug on this, the footprint of the watch, is going to come in at about 45.5 millimeters. And then the depressing thing about this watch is the lug width on this, measured with my calipers, is about 19, maybe it's like 18.7. So we'll say 19 millimeters, but sadly, I can't toss a chase strap on this. Maybe I can if I modify it, but maybe that'll be a future video. Anyway, this thing has a beautiful cushion case. I say that because this is reminiscent of something like a Rolex Datejust or Day-Date, where it has the softer style cushion case there. You can see it's more rounded, high polished down to these pointed lugs. On the top, it is more of a brushed finish with a high polished bezel, giving a nice pleasing pop to the eye from the top down, and then from the side, it's more of a dress watch. You can see that this brushing along the top of the case follows along the Oyster style bracelet. It is a 3-link style bracelet, very comfortable down to a double pusher proper milled clasp. Open it up, not really a big deal. One of the things I love the most about this is all the micro adjustments offered along the side. Now, this is not a adjustment on the fly system, but if you take something like a paper clip, which you can literally find anywhere, you can adjust the slight spring bar on the inside with a paper clip or almost anything else about the size of a paper clip. It does have a screw down case back, and this thing does boast 100 meters of water resistance. Now, with 100 meters of water resistance, you can essentially do almost anything, any daily activity, to include swimming or snorkeling. Now, of course, I wouldn't wear this thing scuba diving, but this is not a dive watch. Now, inside this watch, under this beautiful semi-teal dial, I guess a lot of guys are colorblind, but under the beautiful light blue dial is a Seiko VH31 quartz movement. Now, one of the things that I do love about this quartz movement is I never have to actually redo the time if I take this off my wrist and place it down on my bedside and leave it for a week. That's what's great about quartz movements, but what sucks about quartz movements is the ticking second hand, which you can see here. This thing ticks at about 4 ticks a second, which I actually appreciate. It reminds me of the Seiko Mecha Quartz movements that tick at 5 ticks a second, but the 4 ticks a second gives you the illusion of an automatic watch with all the accuracy of a quartz watch. Now that we're slightly up close on the dial, let's talk about the dial. Now, this thing comes in at under $100 with applied indices. The writing is done very good. Addiesdive just underneath the 12 and just above the 6, 100 meters, 330 feet water resistance. You can see there's concentric circles around that minute track that connect those applied indices, then a printed minute track along the outside. Again, you can see that secondhand ticking, high polished at 4 ticks a second, gives the illusion of an automatic watch, but of course, if you know what you're looking for, you can clearly see this is a quartz movement. Now, my overall impressions of this watch is actually pretty high, with a 316L solid stainless steel case, high polished cushion case, has different types of finishing to include brushing along the top, high polished bezel, a K1 mineral crystal, again, under $100, a screw down crown with, of course, the VH31 movement. Everything functions very, very nicely, very smooth, hacking on that VH. I think that they did a lot with this watch, and you definitely do get a lot of value for a buck. Now, how are you going to wear this watch? We could wear it in multiple different ways. This is a perfect dress watch. This thing is going to look great in a suit if you want to wear it in a suit, even with that color of dial. The K1 mineral crystal is essentially scratch resistant. It's very durable. It's not sapphire, and they could have done sapphire on this, but the watch wouldn't be 70 or 80 bucks. It would be like 130. But I think that it should be 130 for what they offer, and they should just replace the K1 mineral crystal with sapphire glass. But again, this is a very domed crystal. This is kind of more reminiscent of a vintage Oyster Perpetual than it is a current model Oyster Perpetual. That being said, this thing is going to look great in a suit. It's going to look great dressed up. And if you replace the strap with something like a suede strap, sadly not from Chase straps, but something like a suede strap or a grade suede strap, it's going to dress it down, and you can wear this thing with cargo shorts if you're from 1999 and a polo shirt. Or if you just want to dress it down in jeans and a t-shirt, it would be great too. I think that they're offering a lot in this watch, and I think you're hard-pressed, and I say this a lot on this channel, you're hard-pressed to find something that's cheaper than this with this good of finishing in these materials, less than $100 outside of an Invicta. So I would love to hear that in the comments, your alternatives to this watch. Now here's the watch on my 7¼ wrist. You can see that this thing, the footprint of under 46 millimeters, fits perfectly on my medium-sized wrist. Now this thing wears more like a 38 millimeter, even though it's slightly under 38 millimeter. but it definitely does not wear like a small 36 millimeter or a large 40 millimeter. This thing slides perfectly underneath the cuff, even with that extremely domed K1 mineral crystal. Now, one of the positive things that I do like about this watch, not only is its affordability, but it's its durability. 100 meters of water resistance means I can take this thing anywhere, on any vacation, anytime, and I don't have to worry about any type of water intrusion. The downfall of the materials of this watch is the fact that they use a mineral crystal instead of a sapphire crystal. This is something I would be more than happy to pay a little bit extra money for, but I know a domed sapphire crystal is a lot more expensive than a dead flat piece of sapphire crystal, so I understand why they did use the mineral crystal. They wanted to stick to the aesthetic of that domed crystal, and I think it looks quite good. Distortion from the side looks great, and I think the overall presentation of the watch is good. And for, again, like 70 bucks on AliExpress, you can probably find them for slightly cheaper. I think that you're hard-pressed to find something at a better value. Now, I always say that on this channel because it's true. It doesn't matter if it's a $1,500 watch from Echo Nutra. It doesn't matter if it's the $70 watch from Addiesdive. It's hard to find watches better than the ones that I've been talking about lately, but I would love to hear your opinion down in the comments below. For this, you have the VH31 quartz movement that gives you 4 ticks a second, so it gives you the impression of a more mechanical watch with the reliability of a quartz and not having to change the time or battery for quite some time. It gives you the durability of it, even though it's a K1 mineral crystal and not a sapphire, it's still pretty durable. It gives you the 316L stainless steel, full case bracelet, and a nice milled clasp with plenty of micro adjustments. Yes, is this thing an homage to the Oyster Perpetual? Sure, that can absolutely be argued, but if you don't have a whole lot of money and you want a nice dress watch, this may be right up your alley. Anyway, again, leave your comments down below. If you're still here, hit the subscribe button. I would love to have you a member of this community, and it really does help. And I'll see you guys in the next one.